For years now, politicians have been trying to flog their manifestos to the people right here in Bournemouth. But today, we're hoping that you, our floggeteers, will vote with your feet and join our party without the politics. We've come to the Bournemouth International Centre, which has been the host venue for party political conferences for many years. And like many good leaders, we've got your best interests at heart. We're going to value your antiques and lead you all the way to the auction room. But there's more to Bournemouth than just party politics. This gorgeous, beautiful coastline is home to one of only 8 World Heritage Sites. So it's up there with the Grand Canyon and the Great Barrier Reef. For I am literally walking with dinosaurs on Dorset's Jurassic Coast. Because many, many dinosaur footprints have been found in all of these rocks along this stunning coastline. Let's hope we find some more hidden treasures in our queue today, and the antiques we unearth, we get top prices for at auction. On the campaign trail today are experts Nigel Smith and James Lewis. And first up is James, with a painting that takes him back to his own constituency.
Now, Alan Moyne, I spotted this picture from about 100 yards. This is my home. This is Derbyshire. This is we're down on the south coast, and finding a Derbyshire scene is brilliant. How did it come to be here?
Oh, it was a present from my parents a long time ago, a housewarming present. And I'd up in a hotel, and then when it was sold, it was put away in cupboards in the roof.
Oh, no.
And it's wasted. I mean, at the moment, Rory and I have got nowhere to put it regarding the surroundings to do it justice.
Yeah.
So we come down here.
Well, this is a watercolour, a rocky torrent by James Stephen Grizzly.
Yeah.
James Stephen Grizzly was the grandfather of the Grizzly family. The Grisleys are the most famous of the Derbyshire painters. They started in the late 19th century and went all the way through into the mid-20th century. James Stephen, the grandfather, Frank Grizzly was the son, lived in Chellaston, an alcoholic who painted to pay off his bar bills, and he in turn had 2 sons, Harold and Cuthbert. Cuthbert Grizzly painted Still Lives of Flowers and worked for Royal Crown Derby. Harold was a bit of a traveller. He painted scenes in England, but also in Wales, and the mountain scenes and that sort of thing. And it's everything we expect of James Stephen Grizzly. Freedom of hand, colour palette, the yellows and the greens, and this great movement that he had in the water. Lacking a little bit in the fact there were no figures and dogs. He often painted his wife standing by the side with his little black and white sheepdog. All the Grizzly family had black and white sheepdogs, yeah. And they're often found in a lot of the watercolours. But this is a great scene. It's probably up by Dovedale or I Am, something like that, up in the Peak District. But it's a good scene. What do you think it's worth?
Well, I had it valued years ago, and they valued it at £100 then. But that was 18 years ago. OK. Well,
an insurance figure of £100 would reflect an auction figure of 40 to 60.
Yeah.
And in those 18 years, this has gone up tenfold. It's now worth 400 to 600.
Wow.
So
I'm surprised about that.
It's a good picture, and as long as they market it properly, as long as the Derbyshire collectors know about it, I'll do my bit. I'll spread the word up in Derbyshire for you.
Thank you.
Make sure they know about it, and I think it'll do very well.
Thank you very much, James.
Pleasure.
So, Val, you brought this curious sort of slightly misshapen vase along.
Yes.
What can you tell me about it?
It was bought for me as a wedding present in 1970.
Right.
It's most impractical as a vase.
I can imagine, yeah.
About 3 flowers in that central part, and it's full up then.
It's an interesting vase. It's a piece of Whitefriars glass.
Oh.
Made in London. Its original design was done by a chap called Geoffrey Baxter in 1966.
Yes.
It's sort of blown into a mould
Oh.
You can see there's a pontle mark on the back there. So that
Yes.
was actually on a rod, and it was blown into the mould. And then the pontle or the rod was taken off, and this was ground out, and the base was ground flat.
Oh.
So it's quite nice. It's
Yes.
70s stuff is very, very collectible
Yes,
now. And
yes.
Whitefriars has come to the fore. People do collect it.
Oh, lovely.
So there's quite a good market for it. Do you know the name of this? It's called the Drunken Bricklayer Vase. A Drunken
Really?
Bricklayer Vase, yeah. For obvious reasons, really.
Yeah, it's a very
Looks a
good
bit like-
name.
What do you think it might be worth? Have you got any ideas?
I haven't any idea at all.
I think we could probably estimate it at somewhere around 80 to 120 pounds, something
That's
like
fine.
that. Do you want to
Fine.
put a reserve on it?
Yes, 80.
£80?
Yes, please.
We'll have a go, we'll have a go. And what are you going to do with all the money?
I'm really not sure at the moment. Sit on it for a while.
That's always a good thing to do with money.
Yes.
I never managed to sit on mine.
No, I don't very often.
Why have you thought you might sell it now? No sentimental attachment left to it?
No, it was from my first wedding.
Your first husband?
Yes.
Right.
yeah. So, no sentimentality to it at all.
Well, 70s stuff's in. A lot of young collectors do collect this avidly, so
Yes.
might do very well for you.
Thank you.
We'll try it for you. We'll put it in and see how we do.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Good, thanks for bringing it.
Now, Anne, you haven't decided to bring the lightest thing along with you, have you?
No, I haven't.
It's a great object, though. It's a really good plate. What do you know about it?
Nothing. Only that it's Mason.
Well, if we turn it over, it's nice and clearly marked here at the top. Mason's patent ironstone china mark in one long straight line. And that's the early mark. That mark was used on ironstone china between 1813 and 1825.
Oh.
So it's a good early
So
plate.
it's early.
Early 19th century. And it's also inspired by the Japanese taste. It's in what we call the Imari palette, this orange, pale blue, dark blue and gilt. Inspired by the wares that were being exported from the port of Imari in Japan in the 18th and 19th century. And this particular example, it's a good object. It's in relatively good condition. There's a little bit of wear to the gilding, but it's not too bad. No serious chips, no serious cracks. There's a tiny chip just on the edge there, where it's possibly been hung on a wall at some stage.
It did have a very heavy, very, very heavy clip.
A wire clip.
Yes, and I took it off very, very carefully.
Always happens. Never hang a plate with a wire clip. It's death to a plate, it really is. And even something as strong as ironstone can also be damaged by it. But this object is a good, interesting thing. Now, have you got the whole lot? Have you got the whole service or
No,
just this one?
Only that one.
Oh, what a shame. Because a full service would be worth an awful lot of money.
I'm sure.
This is pretty valuable in its own right, though, because it's the largest of the meat plates. It's got the dished gravy bowl to one side. Do you use it for Christmas?
You are joking.
Christmas turkey?
No.
No? Really? Where do you keep it? Lovingly
In the
displayed?
loft.
No.
Yes.
You don't deserve it. How long have you had it?
About 15 years.
And how did you come by it?
I nursed a patient in her home, and when I'd finished, she asked me if I would like something from her as a memento. And she had 3 of these plates, all different designs, different colours. And she asked me if I would choose one. So I chose that one because out of the 3, the prettiest, really.
Well, you made a nice choice. It's a lovely, lovely thing, and it's a great gift. And it shouldn't be in the loft.
I know, but it's too heavy.
It is, isn't it? It's, I mean, that with a fully grown turkey on it's
That's
going to be
right.
quite a weight. And why have you decided to sell it now? Why have you decided to bring it along to flog it?
I'm getting rid of an awful lot of clutter that's in the loft, and that was one of them. So
Oh,
and I
really?
decided to bring it down because it was the easiest to carry today.
Well, if all your clutter in the loft is as good as this, you've got quite a loft. Well, I think if we took this to auction, if we put an estimate of £120 to £160 on it, something like that.
Great.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I think it would do really well, and I wouldn't be surprised if it made above that.
Oh, good.
It's a really good design, it's a really good make, and certainly popular today.
Thank you.
Okay.
That would be great, yes.
Lovely.
Kate Perry has brought in a collection of paperweights for Nigel to pin down the value.
Well, Kate, you've brought this, well, interesting small collection of paperweights. What can you tell me about them?
Not a lot really, just that I inherited them a couple of years ago from a relative in my family, and they've been sat in the loft ever since.
So you never thought of putting them on the shelf and enjoying them?
Absolutely not.
Not your taste?
No. No, I think they're quite hideous, really.
Yeah, I could probably agree with that. They're a mixture. That one's, I think, is a Medina one. The rest probably are Scottish ones, Scottish paperweights. The best paperweights that we do sell occasionally are mid-19th century French weights, and some of those can fetch thousands of pounds. The way they're made, traditionally made, they're made out of sort of coloured canes. And these are sort of rods of glass, different colours, that are fused together. And then they're sort of cut across, and the design is then set in a blob, which sort of amplifies the whole effect. And some of the really nice ones are fantastic quality. These are sort of miss on all counts, I'm afraid. Which is your least favourite?
I find the whole collection quite hideous, really. I don't really appreciate any of them, but I think this one's probably the worst. It's,
Sort of a mixture of blobs and green. I think the thing to do with these is probably put them in one lot in the sale. We don't want any risk of these coming back, do we?
no, definitely not. They've
So
got
if we
to
put
go.
them in without reserve, well, it's a bit risky. I think they'll probably make about £30, £40, something like that.
Okay.
But you don't want them back. What's you going to do with the bit of money we'll raise for you?
Oh, I don't know. Just perhaps blow it on a shopping trip or something. Or buy half a pair of shoes.
Half a pair of shoes, or buy a shoe.
Yeah.